We've got a Zoom call to LA, catching up with our correspondent for The Informer. Her name is Natalie Sady. Natalie, I see that these are extraordinary times in America, but the stories that you keep coming up with never cease to amaze me, and some of these are just plain awful. I.C.E, or the Immigration Control Enforcement people, have got themselves in quite a distressing situation. It involves the Irwin County Detention Centre deep down in the heart of Georgia. What's happened there? The allegations are sickening, to say the least. Just give us some sense of what's happened.
They are sickening. So very early last week, a whistleblower named Dawn Wooten came forward with a whole range of allegations. And I just want to point out, as at the very beginning of this, that Irwin County Detention Centre is a for-profit facility, and it's one of 18 in the LaSalle group. So we just need to keep this in mind as we're going through this.
So it's a private company.
Correct.
Right,
just like the private jails that run, or prisons that run in Victoria. Wooten has worked at this facility on and off for 3 years, and she's worked in the prison system for 10 years. So she's not someone that's new to the system or how it works.
Yep.
So she came forward with allegations about what was going on in the facility in regards to COVID. Lack of PPE gear, lack of masks for the detainees, lack of testing for the detainees, lack of reporting or underreporting of the figures, also lack of hygiene within the facility, especially in the medical facility of all of this. But what is the biggest part, or I think the most disturbing part of these allegations, is that there are reports of mass hysterectomies that are being done on these women that are detained there. And the thought of that going on just makes your blood run cold. So Wooten had apparently approached her superiors in regards to the lack of PPE. She was given one N95 mask in March when the pandemic first started. In May, a strap broke and she asked for a replacement, and she was denied that request. So this is sort of the level of what's going on, and this is how long she's been going to management and speaking to them about the conditions. Over time, though, she was reduced from having full-time hours to being on call and only working a couple of hours every month. The other thing that happened was there were several times in her time working there during the pandemic that she needed to get tested for COVID. At one point, she was showing COVID symptoms, so the doctor gave her a doctor's note for time off from work until the results came through. She was reprimanded for not calling in every single day, even though she had documentation for why she wasn't at work. Now, it's important to note that her white colleagues apparently did not have to call in sick every day that they had off, and they were also given COVID pay if their time off from work was COVID related. So there's certainly a double standard there. And then the following month, a new order was issued that all staff had to call in every day if they were taking time off for anything COVID related. Now, back to the mass hysterectomies. It is reported that there were at least 17 women who have had full hysterectomies performed or had their fallopian tubes removed. There are reports that one woman was not fully under anesthetic at the time of her operation, and she heard the doctor talking about the fact that he had removed the wrong ovary, so he would have to go back in and remove the other ovary. So she not only heard this, but then woke up having had a full hysterectomy. There are also allegations that these women have not had these procedures explained to them in their native language, that the consequences of such surgeries weren't explained to them, and there were women that were told that they had to have their uteruses removed or their fallopian tubes removed due to cancer, but when they were out of the facility and went to see medical experts about their cancer diagnosis, they were told that there was no traces of cancer. So this doctor does have a nickname within the facility, and that is the uterus collector, because every woman that he sees ends up having her uterus removed. This doctor does have a history of billing malpractice. So a couple of years ago, there was a case against him and 5 other doctors for false billing against Medicare. And so they paid just over $500,000 in settlement to the US government. And then the case was settled. With this being a for-profit facility, in 2016, the facility was looked into, I.C.E.'s practices were looked into, and they found that they have 2 separate tracking systems for these sorts of procedures. And one is for the approvals of procedures that are going to be performed, and the other one is for payments that are received in the facility. And the issue is that the 2 systems don't match up. They don't align. And this was found, a number of years ago. So it doesn't look great for Dr. Amin that he has a history with billing practices and then this is going on. So the other issue is that forced sterilisation of any group of people is a human rights violation on a level that we've talked about over the years, through World War II, in the Holocaust, concentration camps. Pregnant women and Jewish women were sterilised. They had experiments done on them. And there is a history of mass sterilisation here in the US as well. So it's not something that is that far-fetched, unfortunately. So in 1927, the Supreme Court ruled in a case, Buck v. Bell, and Oliver Wendell Holmes asserted that 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. And as a result, 70,000 people, mostly women of colour, were sterilised at the time. And when I was researching this story, there was case after case after case where minorities especially were sterilised en masse. And it's just mind-blowing to think that it could still happen. Now, in terms of the response from officials, Dr. Amin's lawyer has vehemently denied that any of the allegations are true. ICE has said that it doesn't comment on matters referred to its Inspector General, but that in general, anonymous, unproven allegations made without any fact, checkable specifics should be treated with the scepticism they deserve. It is important to note, though, that a whistleblower complaint is not to prove allegations, but rather to raise the alarm for an issue to be looked into.
Okay.
And that's all Wooten has said that she's after. Nancy Pelosi has issued a statement calling for an immediate investigation, noting that if the allegations are true, that they represent a staggering abuse of human rights. So this story is incredible on so many levels, and I think there is a whole lot more yet to come. And the fact that this is coming out right before an election, it is perfect timing.
Yeah, I've got to say, it's what you've detailed is an unimaginable horror. I cannot imagine that in this day and age, this sort of abuse, this mistreatment, and this level of ineptness and corruptness is still going on. If this was a series for Netflix or for Amazon, whatever, I would say to you, oh yeah, okay, fine, interesting drama, whatever. But to actually imagine that it is real and happening in the heart of Georgia at a so-called private facility is mind-numbing. Thank you once again for giving us an insight and giving us some detail between what you and we must agree is an absolute horror story. And if this doctor is found guilty, I hope they line him up for a number of lifetimes, because one lifetime won't be enough. Natalie Sady, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, George.